Hey traders, checking in on the cryptocurrency space. So we still have weakness in daily downtrends, but there's some very clear patterns presenting themselves, and I'm going to be looking for a break of these patterns within the next 3 or 4 days, and that is going to dictate momentum into the end of the year. Let's see what these patterns are. So first, let's check in on the dollar and the broader market. So the dollar has a double top at our current high. We know we're in a monthly, weekly, daily uptrend. On this pullback after the double top, we also just held daily support with a double bottom. So we got a double top at 96.94 and a double bottom down at 95.85. That is the range that we're looking at, and we are smack dab in the middle of it. So there are two scenarios over the next handful of days, keeping in mind we're not going to trade over the weekend, but a bull flag is confirmed on the weekly with a clear higher high, or a loss of the daily uptrend, a failed bull flag, and further consolidation. And again, if you are a bull in the broader market, in crypto, wherever you are, you want to see dollar weakness. So you want to see the dollar fail the double top and lose the uptrend, taking out that support. So we've had a lot of big economic events over the past week. We had the FOMC reaction in the broader market. We've got quadruple witching today. Google that if you don't know what it is. It's when a lot of options are expiring, and we got the end of the year. So a lot of shuffling is going on. We look at the broader market, and there's still some fear present. Not a ton. You know, the S&P 500 is only 2% plus from the all-time high, but we've had a lot of choppy action here and a lot of uncertainty while things have settled in. When I am looking at the broader market, big picture, there's a few things that I look at to determine risk on versus risk off. Risk on is euphoria mode. Everything's running. People are throwing money at the wall. NFT craze, whatever it is, euphoria. And anything less than that, risk off, means, I'm a little uncertain about things. I want some cash back in case we dip. I'm going to sell off my higher risk assets. And I watch crypto, cannabis sector, and psychedelic sector, and IWM. So crypto we know is obviously extremely volatile. Cannabis sector and psychedelic sector, that's about as high risk and high reward as you can possibly get, with all the factors with, you know, legalities and changing laws and all of that. And then IWM is just a composition of 2,000 stocks that are much lower cap and much higher risk and higher reward. And those IWM growth names are the same names that ran hundreds and hundreds, some of them thousands of percent after our COVID lows and topped out. And we've now dropped 50 to 70% from those highs on these names. And so if we look at IWM, we've had a brutal past few weeks. And again, I pointed out the similarities where we had big 3 red weeks and an inside bar. We did break to a lower low. And if we compare it to Bitcoin, 3 big red weeks, inside bar, and broke the low, or broke that inside bar bearish. So again, we're very clearly doing very similar things to what IWM is. And there's even more, similarities that we can draw. The uranium sector is very similar to cryptocurrency. Gold has been very similar, not the last 2 days, but again, on the weekly perspective. So what I'm watching on IWM is, do we see fear alleviated? Today, the bulls are standing out a bit more than other sectors in the broader market, but I'm watching this 4-hour falling wedge, because how this breaks next week is going to be important to help us determine, is it a bull break with some more risk on mindset, or is it a bear break with fear? So tightening up. And this is key because we're about to look at a ton of 4-hour charts that are very similar like this in the crypto space. So IWM is my gauge for risk on. And right now, I'm not seeing much of risk on. If we were to see a big bull move, if we were to see some daily trend changes, that would change. So Bitcoin, 4-hour. This is the pattern that is most clear. We have clear rejections from resistance, every one of them being a daily lower high, but the bear breaks aren't seeing a whole lot of follow through. We had a bear break here by $1,000 straight into a bounce. We had a bear break this morning by $200 straight into a bounce. And we are watching our flush low of 42.3 if we do get bear follow through. But until this pattern breaks, this is the pattern that I am keeping an eye on. Right now, the bulls on Bitcoin will have to change the hourly trend back in their favor if we're going to competently hold this 4-hour support. And then if we bounce over the weekend, we'll just be watching our resistance, knowing on the daily time frame that anything under 49.5 is just a lower high. Again, these EMAs have been great guides, and every single bounce, there's no fake outs here. Every single bounce is just a lower high. So I see a lot of posts on social media with people talking about how difficult a trading environment this is. It's a very clear trend. We're in a very clear downtrend. It's a very difficult trading environment if you're only looking bullish and you're over trading, but otherwise it's a clear downtrend that we're keeping an eye on. And that 4-hour pattern is our guide. Look at how many other names. I posted these 6 hours ago, and they've definitely changed a bit with most names heading closer towards support. But this morning, all these 4-hour time frames, this is Link, this is Binance, Sushi, a little bit of a different look to it with that uptrend, ADA, Litecoin, ICP, Sand, Mana, FTT. So again, a lot of potential falling wedges out there. And most of them saw weakness after I posted these charts, and a lot of them got right down to their support, but are still holding within these patterns. We know the burden of proof is on the bulls in the short term, just like the burden of proof is on our risk on assets like IWM in the short term. So short term, Bitcoin needs an hourly trend change to the bulls. That'll be a hold of 4-hour downtrending support, and we'll be looking back at daily lower high resistance of 49.5 thousand. Dominance chart, daily trend change trying to shape up. We would have to see a higher low and higher high on the dominance chart for the first time in months. If that were to happen, it would be more confirmation of our triple bottom holding. The monthly time frame is in equilibrium right now with essentially a triple bottom, and the daily trend change is needed for that support level to hold confidently. So that resistance up here is 42.26%. Nice that TradingView changed these to percentages. And watching to see. So what are two scenarios? In the current standpoint of this market, how could we break bull here? Scenario number one, that 4-hour pattern breaks bull on Bitcoin, the daily lower highs break, and altcoins don't respond nearly as strong, and Bitcoin leads the way. The other scenario, Bitcoin breaks bear, altcoins flush harder. Those are the only two ways that this dominant share can change the daily trend with where we stand. ETH-USD has got its own 4-hour falling wedge pattern. So again, just clear resistance rejections, clear holds of support, bear breaks lacking follow through, and tightening up. We need an hourly trend change back to the bulls if we get it. There are 12-hour inverse head and shoulders patterns to be watching out there within these 4-hour falling wedges. Here's one of them. So Ethereum would have to hold the low and break 41.16 to confirm a 12-hour trend change. And again, we're going to look at a handful of other names where there's similar setups. Mana and USD are two of them, or Mana and Sand. ETH-BTC, we're scouting a daily head and shoulders. Right now, the bulls are fending off that daily head and shoulders. And bulls really want to break 848 to negate it. But again, it's that same scenario. If the dominance chart is going to change the daily trend bull, we will likely break support here. And the only two ways that happens is if Bitcoin leads the way up and alts all lag behind, or if Bitcoin breaks bear and the altcoins drop faster. So right now it is still a daily uptrend on ETH-BTC, but we knew to be scouting the daily lower high as the most likely scenario on the next bounce, and now we have it. It's just a question of, can we hold that low and keep the uptrend going, or do we break that low and see more significant weekly consolidation underway? Sol USD. So again, talked about the swing trade that I'm in at this point, and I don't have to do anything. It was nice to see it go up significantly higher after the video from last time, but there's no action for me to take. The only action for me to take is getting stopped out where I don't do anything and I don't lose $1, or we confirm a daily trend change, and I would start to consider taking profit if we confirm the daily trend change, because I would be anticipating that a weekly lower high is the most likely scenario on that daily trend change. Just like Bitcoin, just like everybody else. You break these patterns bullish, we zoom out and we scout a weekly lower high to be the result of that bounce. So that's when the decision making comes into play for me on Sol. Confirm a daily trend change, I'll start considering where am I going to take profit for a weekly lower high. Sol BTC, tightening up, trying to form a 2-week higher low. Still holding EMA 12 is a good sign. Daily trend change back to the bulls will be needed once we top out on this bounce. Tons of space for that lower high, anything under 43. Then we got to hold the low and confirm that daily trend change. And just watching patiently. ADA. So I am now in an ADA position. And we are watching this 4-hour falling wedge. There's a base of support. 118s, 119, 119, 120. We just dropped down to 118s again. So we need an hourly trend change back to the bulls, just like everybody else. If we get the hourly trend change, we zoom out and scout a 4-hour lower high. It may be less clear at that point. We may go to the 12-hour to scout a lower high. But I just love the clarity of these trend lines until we get clear breaks. So I started scaling in on 12-hour consolidation here, and I made an initial starting entry at 127, and I then did not make a buy off support because I was distracted trading stocks today. If I weren't and I was only focused on crypto here, I would have made a second entry at support. I would have put my stop under probably 118. I would have just missed stopping out. And I would have sold half already at this point to drop my break even on my initial entry. But I'm in a small position because if my starter is 127 and my stop is under 118, I am risking, what is that, 8% or something? That's a lot. So my position size determines my risk. Percentage only means so much. You're risking the same dollar amount if you have a 1% risk on a $100,000 trade or a 10% risk on a $10,000 trade. So again, you can control your risk on any trade based on your position size. If I'm bottom fishing a level and I'm risking less than 1%, I'm going to use a much larger position. If I'm using a swing trade level and I'm risking 8%, I'm using a much smaller position. So if I stop out and if 118 breaks on my 127 entry, I lose a day loser. And at this point, my SOL trade is already up, 4-day makers. So I'm risking a fraction of profit on another trade that's still open. Granted, I haven't locked that in, but just want to, again, you say 8%, I could lose 8% on this trade. And everybody thinks, oh my God, that's huge risk. Now it's a day loser. And if I were taking a Bitcoin trade and a support level were right nearby, that might just be a 1% drop on Bitcoin with a much larger position. So again, keep that in mind. You control your amount of risk and reward based on position sizing, and my position sizing reflects how close or how far away I am to the stop level that I am using. So I fully expect to stop out of this trade, but if I don't, what's the reward? Well, the reward would be a weekly bounce, and even if it's a weekly bounce, I'd be looking at 20% plus. So just a low risk and decent reward possibility. But if we break bear, I'll be done with it. Haven't traded ADA in forever. This is just, there's a clear base of support. Why not give it a try? And here's the BTC pairing. It's getting nice and tight as well. Obviously, we need a bull break here to have confidence. Watching closely. Sand. So Sand liking this clarity here. Sand's another name where we have a pattern to be watching with these trend lines. But look at the 12-hour inverse head and shoulders attempt. If we're going to break these patterns bullish, it's going to have to be with a 12-hour higher low and then a 12-hour higher high breaking 507 resistance. Burden is on the bulls. If we do not break these 12-hour lower highs, bears are going to keep complete control. Again, there are no fake outs here. Lower high, lower high, lower high, lower high, lower high, lower high, lower high. It is nice and clear, and the bears keep complete control as long as that remains the case. Mana, same deal, but a bit weaker. But it's the same 4-hour pattern. It's the same 12-hour lower highs. And anything under 343 is just a lower high. In TradingView, right as I'm about to talk about TradingView, it does this again. Anyways, TradingView, there's a way that you can compare tickers. I can look at a chart, and just from looking at 50,000 charts in my life, I can know this one's stronger, this one's weaker by looking at Sand and Mana. But you can also type Sand /Mana, and it will tell you, if you can type it right, it will tell you who's stronger, who's weaker. So if Sand's in front of this equation, if it's going up, that means Sand is stronger. So we can see Sand has been stronger than Mana ever since November 24th. So that's 3 weeks of Sand being stronger. we can watch for a potential weekly lower high. Maybe mana is going to start gaining some ground. But again, just keep in mind, this does not dictate direction, because if sand and mana are dropping and mana drops faster, this chart goes up. If sand and mana are going up and sand's going up faster, this chart goes up. So it doesn't tell you whether the assets are going up or down. It just tells you, where would it be better to have my money? You know, if I had to choose between sand or mana, I would want my cash in sand over the last 3 weeks. That doesn't give the answer, sand or US dollars as the better place to be, but it gives you the answer on 2 different assets. All right, I think that's all we got here. So 4-hour time frames for clarity. I don't have any Bitcoin or Ethereum positions aside from long-term no touch. Again, I'm just very patient. I exited my swing positions on the flush bounce to the daily lower high. Put yourself in the bear scenario. Even if you're not trading bearish, I know a lot of you are. Congrats on the gains. If you are a bear on Bitcoin, do you have anything to be concerned about? No. As long as you keep setting daily lower highs, as long as the daily EMA 12 is resistance, you don't have a care in the world. So keep that in mind. If you want to see shorts being forced to cover, you've got to take out daily lower high resistances. I'm anticipating volatility either this weekend or first thing next week. Again, within 4 days, I expect all these 4-hour ranges to break one direction or the other. The burden of proof is on the bulls. I'm watching to see how is IWM going to close the day today. Again, risk on stocks, big bounce. This is the first time that growth names, IWM, have led the broader market in as long as I can remember, which probably means a month plus. So if we can see a new high of the day here, an hourly bull flag, a new high of the day, and a strong close, that will have a bit of a sentiment heading into the weekend for crypto. So I'm keeping an eye. You know, we're either going to see a new all-time high, or a new high of the day, I should say, and trend change, or this bounce just fades and bears take back over and it's, here we go again. Sentiment into the weekend for the stock market definitely has an impact on crypto over the weekend, in my opinion. Feel free to ask any questions. Don't forget to do good things. I hope you're well. Have a game plan for both scenarios, bull break and bear break. What are you going to do? What positions are you going to close out? What positions are you going to scout? Write it down. See you next week. Time chapter 8. So we are looking now, Colorado, Black Canyon of the Gunnison National Park in Colorado. And it's pretty much like, I won't say it's like the Grand Canyon because it's way different, but it is, I think it's the deepest ravine, I don't know what the right word is, but the deepest thing in the country in terms of steep, how steep it is, and the slope and how fast it drops down to the bottom. And you can see the river in there cutting away, and that's just been millions and millions and millions of years of ice and glaciers and rivers cutting away at these rocks. And it's really cool that you can literally just see time and see all the different years and millions of years going down to the bottom. And it's a pretty cool national park. Not a ton of camping in terms of, you know, being out in the woods or things like that. They have designated areas, but a cool place to check out. And really cool sunrises and sunsets. There's all your nice flowers with the reds and purples and blues, and arid in the Colorado dry air, but still a lot of plant life thrives. But really nice views, long distance. The sunrise and the sunsets were really cool because the shadows across the rocks were awesome. And I would just do my thing in the BLM land or National Forest land. This is just another campsite off the side of the road. And if you're looking to travel, the national parks are the kind of places that cost more, but it's clearly they're a lot better funded in terms of infrastructure and also information. They have great information centers, and you can show up to a national park with no plan, and they'll fill you in with everything you need, maps and best places to hike and best places to camp and all that. If you're going to a national forest, they have information centers, but you can tell they're way underfunded. They don't care. I've gone to national forest information centers, and they almost don't want you to go to certain places. They're trying to steer you away. Maybe it means more work for them picking up trash, which I could understand, but it's way less helpful. It's night and day experiences. So if you're going to national parks, you need to or you have national forests or BLM land, you need to do research on your own on the internet before getting out there. Otherwise, you are probably going to get lost and you're going to miss out on a lot of the best areas. But that's what I was talking about with the shadows for, looks like sunset starting there in the cavern. This dude, I was just sitting there at my campsite. This little chipmunk, it's pretty poor quality, but his mouth is completely stuffed, his cheeks are completely stuffed, and his belly is completely stuffed. He was literally dragging his belly, walking across the road in an army crawl like he was full of food, which he was. But he just stopped, and he stayed in this exact position, and he just stared at me for literally enough time for me to sit there and be like, what are you doing? And pull out my phone and take a picture for it. It must have been there for 5 minutes, still like that, with his legs sticking out, just completely stopped. He was probably saying like, man, I hope he doesn't come and get me because I can't move if he wants to get me. Anyways, there's some more of the canyon and you can go down into the canyon, but it's a multiple day excursion. And it's certainly a lot of planning, and I did not do that. There's some more of the shadows and different angles that the rocks are being hit. Then I went to Silverton, Colorado, which is a little old mining town, very small, but they go all out for their fireworks. And it's probably the second best firework display I've ever seen. I went to Boston in 2000 and they went all out. So that's probably the best, but it's just regular old Silverton, Colorado. They've got mining tracks, or I should say railroad, nice scenic railroad through the mountains, through Silverton, but some mining history in the town and mostly a vacation, not a vacation spot, but a place that people pass through, not a whole bunch of locals, but a really cool fireworks show and nice to be able to just skip into town and see that. So from here, I'm going to hop on over to Ouray, and then I think I head down south towards Durango and Mesa Verde National Park, and that'll be chapter 9, I think. I've lost count of chapters, but we'll keep on going. See you soon.